Welcome to episode 112 of the Gut Wrench Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mocha. This is the Gut Wrench Podcast, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about something right after I get done with this cold open. So for those of you who don't know what a cold open is, it's basically like it's supposed to be me discussing, grabbing your attention in a way. Discussing what today's episode is supposed to be, and then after the cold open is finished, you'll notice that the segment has ended, and then after the segment has ended, you'll notice that the next segment begins. However, in this cold open, all I can say is two things. I can think of two things to say. Number one is I was right about the whole... So, Throughout the year of last year, late last year, I had been talking about the fact that had it been up to me, I would put Seth Rollins first in the top three, correcting a mistake that PWI, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, made earlier on in the year when I want to say November, early or late October, early November. I don't know why they don't wait until the end of the year, which it sounds like that they're waiting until the end of the year, but they're actually not, because there's still a whole month to go, But I don't know why they wait until like September, October, somewhere around there. And I could be stretching the truth, but not on purpose, that much that I promise you. But like the last issue of their magazine in September into October, if not the last week of October into early November, they always do a ranking. And this year's ranking, last year's ranking is what I should say, 2023, into 2024, they ranked number one as Roman Reigns. I told them that was a mistake. And as you all know, we've been discussing that a little bit. Well, I would have put Seth Rollins first. Is what I keep saying. I would have put Seth Rollins first. And I probably would have put Dean Ambrose, John Moxley rather, as second, and then Roman as third, because those two seem to work a lot more than Roman does. Well, fast forward to January of 2024, and the end of the year awards that are given away by PWI were in fact given away, and in doing so, hang on, I got the picture right here. I gotta go look at it so that I can see. I'm pretty sure Seth Rollins won the Wrestler of the Year award for 2023. Now, why would the number 2 ranked wrestler in the world win the Wrestler of the Year award? To me, that doesn't really make much sense, because the Wrestler of the Year should be the guy who you named. Yep, 2023 Achievement Award, Seth Rollins, Wrestler of the Year, as voted by the readers of Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. So this is not even like Dave Meltzer's awards. This is like the Pro Wrestling Illustrated's awards. But where he won the Wrestler of the Year, and I didn't take a picture like I thought that I did, but I didn't take a picture of whoever won Female Wrestler of the Year. I thought that I did, and canonically speaking, if consistency is anything to go by, then it should have been Becky. But at the same time, she was out a little bit. She didn't come back until like SummerSlam, until like August. So maybe it wasn't Becky. Maybe it was Bianca. Even though, in my opinion, Bianca doesn't deserve any sort of an award for minusculely she's generic. Let's be honest. Everybody's came out and everybody said that they were the EST at one point or another. Everyone's always had the opportunity to come out, and then whenever they're handed the microphone, they always say the same thing. I'm the best. I'm the strongest. I'm the fastest. I'm this. I'm that. And that's great and all, but you gotta have a way of saying it without saying it. And this cold open isn't going to go on for like forever because I got another announcement to make too. So, take for example AJ Styles. After he beat John Cena at SummerSlam, what did he do? He started coming out and he started saying that this is the house that AJ Styles built. He didn't come out and say that he was the best. He was the I was he didn't come out and say all that generic shit. And last week, I'm almost certain that last week or the week before, we looked at the Royal Rumble 2005. JBL, whenever he was being interviewed for the Royal Rumble, what did he say to Dave Bautista? He practically told him, "You may as well call me Smoke, son, because I've been on fire." That's something that you got to be able to do. You got to be able to talk about what it is that you've been doing without talking about the actions that you've done. You got to be able to talk about it without actually going around and saying it, is what I mean to say. Because what you've done is irrelevant, and it's going to be irrelevant for 3 or 4 months, 5 or 6 months. But in the grand scheme of things, it just adds to your resume. Anyway, the second announcement that I have to make is that I'm an idiot. And I say that because all this time I've just been going on and on and on about how if Sami Zayn wins the Royal Rumble, I can't do anything about that. So I'm just going to have to go on strike. I'm just going to have to quit. I'm just going to have to tuck it in. Give it up. Sami Zayn won the Royal Rumble. If that were to happen, I have other options. So, I was looking around at a website that I used to use in order to watch pro wrestling, more specifically AEW. And I hadn't been there since I got rid of my old phone. My old phone would not, for the life of me, it would not play anything from that website. It would start to play it a little bit, and then after that, it would get to an ad. And then after the ad, it wouldn't play it at all. So I just got so frustrated, and then I was like, God damn it. This isn't working at all. Well, what am I going to do now? I can't watch AEW. It sucks. So now, this entire time, I'd been on a WWE binge, just WWE this, WWE that, WWE. And the fact is that I didn't realize that website was still up, and not only is it still up, but it seems to work. With my new phone and my new phone plan with AT&T, not sponsored by the way, AT&T hit me up. There's your cheap pop, AT&T, and it was on my cold open. Usually the cheap pops come whenever the show starts. But anyway, what I mean to say is, whenever I got my new phone, I never bothered to check that website. So now that I have my new phone, I just decided to type in, watch AEW for free, like I did before. And sure enough, I can watch AEW for free. Last week's AEW episode that they were advertising was the match between Hook and Samoa Joe. The AEW TNT champion, if I remember correctly, versus the AEW World Champion. And it was for the AEW World Championship, the undefeated Hook, might I add. But I don't know who won that match, so no spoilers going in. I'm not quite sure. I never really caught the highlights of it. So, maybe I'll look at that. Maybe I'll look at, the undefeated Hook facing off against the AEW World Champion, Samoa Joe. A lot of people think also that, what I should say in hindsight is that I basically said that I'm going to lift provided that Sami Zayn wins the Royal Rumble, which let's hope that he doesn't. I mean, there's a 1 in 30 chance that he's going to. But provided that Zayn wins the Royal Rumble, which let's hope that he doesn't, like I said before. But if he does, then I will have backup plans. I will have an ace in the hole, so to speak. So I could go 52 weeks, which is a whole year, of watching nothing but AEW, even though that's kind of outside my comfort zone. That's kind of somewhere where I would hope that I wouldn't have to stray so far away, but I will if I have to. Anyway, and the third thing that I wanted to talk about, this cold open is almost over, don't worry. The third thing that I wanted to talk about was the fact that whenever I'm at work, for some reason, everybody wants to point out how cold it is. Because I guess they're all coming out of the cold and into the grocery store. Because I, once again, work in retail. No surprise. But anyway, whenever they come out of the cold air, all that they want to talk about is how cold it is outside. I don't know why they have this incessant, just almost like they don't know how to have a conversation outside of, oh my God, it's so cold outside. Is it cold enough for you? I can't tell you the number of times that I've had like old ladies or whatever else come up to me and then ask me, is it cold enough for you? Like, no, you dumb bitch. It has to be 25 degrees less cooler than what it already is before it's cold enough for me. I'm just an alien that lives on a fucking glacier. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing, is it cold enough for you? Woo, I'm freezing. Oh my God, it's so cold. And then I'm just like, oh my God, it's nature. There's nothing you can do about it. Why are you going to complain about it? And on top of that, it's almost like they don't know what it's like I said, to have a conversation. Whenever you're having a conversation with somebody, usually it goes, hey, how are you? What's going on? How's your family been? Did you hit the lottery yet? Well, hit me up when you do. Hey, you want to hear a joke? That's usually my line. That's my open right there. Hey, you want to hear a joke? And then I usually tell him some cockamamie NASCAR joke that goes a little something like this. Do you know where the term NASCAR originated from? And then usually they'll end up saying no. And then I'll say, well, a guy looked at his buddy's car, and then he said, hey man, that's a nice car you got there. Anyway, I've been Mocha. This has been a cold open. Thank you all so much for joining me. Now, on to the show. Welcome to episode 112 of the Gut Wrench Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host. My name is Mocha, as you all know. Most of you should know by now. That's right, Mocha. Despite what James Ellsworth would tell you, my name's not Machka. But that's a story for another day, I suppose. Anyway, back to what I was originally talking about, how cold it is outside. Do you know how cold it is outside? Because I certainly do. But how cold was it? Hey, Al Gore. Now I'm about to pick on a politician. Everybody, hide your wives, hide your daughters, because I'm about to pick on Al Gore. That was supposed to rhyme, but it didn't. But anyway, hey Al Gore, you remember in 2001, whenever you said that in 20 years, the world would be underwater? Not the world. I'm pretty sure he said New York City would be underwater. Yep. Well, it's no closer to being underwater. I mean, Ellis Island still is not an island. That's too far away from I didn't mean to make a Shrek reference there. That's too far away from the United States. It's not an island that's like, covered in sand, or for that matter, covered in mystery, shrouded in mystery. He said that in 2001 in a documentary. I forget what the name of the documentary was, but I guess you could look it up. Al Gore documentary. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for it. Don't ask me how you win a Nobel Peace Prize for a documentary. Where he was like, we need to take care of the earth. We need to take care of the earth. I was like, in the 6th grade, the 5th grade maybe. Okay, maybe the 3rd grade. But I had to watch that documentary like twice, It's so weird. In today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, despite what Al Gore would tell you, we're going to be talking about January 31st, 1999. This was a show that took place called Halftime Heat. Now, it's to my understanding that we have been in conflicting views, conflicting reports, but it's my understanding that it's to my knowledge that this happened at the halftime of the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, which took place between the Atlanta Falcons, faced off against the Denver Broncos. And who was the MVP that year, 1999? You might be asking yourself, well, I have an answer. It was John Elway. I don't even know who the fuck that is, but I took down some notes from Wikipedia so that I could tell all of you who the MVP from 1999 was. You might be asking, well, I have an answer, John Elway. Okay, now for those of you who are into football, for one reason or another, you can probably start your own conversation amongst each other, not with me, God damn it, but amongst each other, talking about how great John Elway was. Personally, I don't know anything about anyone who is involved in the Super Bowl. Moving on to a relevant topic, more relevant because it is not a Monday Night Football review. And I'm not here to fluff John Elway's resume. Instead, what I'm here to do is I'm here to talk about some wrestling. And in doing so, we open up with the 1999 Royal Rumble. Once again, we are talking about the Royal Rumble. Now, what happened that's significant at the 1999 Royal Rumble? Well, it's not what we're reviewing tonight, but they open the show that we are reviewing by showing the I Quit match that happened that night at the 1999 Royal Rumble between The Rock and between Mankind, who previously had one other wrestling match that was a last man standing match, which ended up in a no contest or a draw, because I've seen that match, but I haven't reviewed it for this particular podcast. Perhaps it's something that we could look at when the time comes right. For the build leads up to this, that The Rock guarantees victory. He makes a huge claim that he can get Mankind to say the words, I quit. And how does he go about doing that? He handcuffs Mankind with his hands tied behind his back. So The Rock basically takes some handcuffs, he puts them on Mick Foley, Mankind. Upon doing so, Mankind basically has no way of defending himself from the chair shots. that The Rock continues to hit him with. Now, this match is particularly, I want to say gruesome or graphic, but on that Peacock Network, they don't really like censor it at all. I mean, you get to see it in its entirety. To my knowledge, even though I didn't watch it myself, or I haven't seen it in years rather, or even highlights from it, the 99 Rumble was an absolute... Going into this review, by the way, this little synopsis that I have, like 2 months ago, I'd maybe listened to someone else review the 99 Royal Rumble for their podcast. And it was much, much easier than, having to sit down and then watch an entire 3 or 4.5 hour pay-per-view. Even a 2.5 hour pay-per-view, it was much easier just to listen to their 30-minute podcast. And yes, I do listen to other creators' podcasts because I don't have a reason to, not to, I guess. Anyway, The Rock handcuffs Mankind with his hands tied behind his back, and he takes a steel chair and then proceeds to beat the living hell out of Mankind. Countless headshots. It is nearly estimated to the count. It is nearly impossible, rather, to count the number of chair shots that Mankind sustained in this match because some people count 32, other people count 59, despite the conflicting views, despite the conflicting counts. This was all they just kept saying. If he wants to quit, The Rock keeps asking him if he wants to give up, if he wants to quit, because keep in mind, this was an I quit match. You're not to let up until the opponent actually says the words, quote, "I quit." Because it is an I quit match, about 2 weeks ago in an interview, however, Mankind said he will never say the words, "I quit." The Rock, however, gets a tape recording of him saying the words in said interview that was taken out of context, where he did in fact say the words, "I quit." But The Rock takes that tape recorder and then he takes that out of context, or out of, because he can't get Mankind to say "I quit." What he does is he plays the tape recorder of him saying "I quit" in that interview. But Mankind was saying that he won't say those words. This is the word that I will not say, and then he goes on to say the word that he's not supposed to say. Sort of like Matt Hardy did back in the day whenever he came out with the whole V1 Matt Hardy thing, because Matt Hardy's whole shtick was that he would never say that word. This is sort of a Justin Bieber moment, but you know how he says, "I will never say never," despite the fact that he's saying never twice, while he's fucking proclaiming that he will never say never. Well, Matt Hardy's word that he wouldn't say was he will not say die. And that's the kind of attitude to have, the whole not say die attitude or whatever. Anyway, getting back to the task at hand here, gets a tape recording of him saying the words in the interview taken out of context, and seeing as though that Mankind himself did not utter those words in question, he plays a tape recording of Mankind during said interview, in which those key words almost for the rest of the interview was cropped out. Do you want to talk about trauma? You want to talk about CTE, concussions, or tumors? The amount of times that The Rock was swinging for the fences, it's likely that Mankind was scarred by this match in question. Of course, I'm talking about the Royal Rumble 1999, but that's not what we're talking about here tonight. But I'm simply telling you, the listener, what it is that they opened this show with, because the Royal Rumble just so happened to happen last week from the show that we are watching, that we are looking at, which is a show that's aptly named Halftime Heat. Why is it called Halftime Heat, you might be asking? Well, because these motherfuckers were able to pay for a halftime show at the Super Bowl in 1999, which brings me back around to the first thing that I was talking about, which was the 1999 Super Bowl, which just so happened to be the Broncos facing off against, what did I say? Despite the fact that I've studied this, Atlanta Falcons. Yeah. And I'd studied this multiple times before. I even had a few screenshots on my phone, but I still couldn't remember who it was that the Denver Broncos were facing off against, the Atlanta Falcons. Who won the Royal Rumble that year, according to Wikipedia. Also, according to another podcast in which that I reviewed, or in which that has reviewed this particular show, I happened to listen to, leading up to this broadcast in question, Vince McMahon screwed Stone Cold Steve Austin with the help of The Rock, by the way. The Rock and Vince McMahon screwed Stone Cold Steve Austin out of the 1999 Royal Rumble. However, he does not, I repeat, he does not invoke a match at WrestleMania to face the champion. And a lot of people, especially the podcast that I listened to leading up to this one, was like, well, the Royal Rumble had no meaning in the year 1999, because if you think about it, the Rumble, the whole premise of the Royal Rumble is to get through 29 other guys so that you can head to the main event at WrestleMania. And the only thing that Vince McMahon wanted to do was stop Steve Austin from getting to be the last man at the Royal Rumble. And when all else failed, he declared, or he didn't declare, but he helped, with the help of The Rock, who happened to be on the ring apron at the time, or he was below the ring apron. I don't know how to explain it, but The Rock sort of pulled Steve Austin down, and then Vince McMahon sort of threw Steve Austin over the rope, therefore eliminating Steve Austin and declaring himself the winner of the 1999 Royal Rumble. And that's not how that works at all. But we all know why we go to the Royal Rumble. It's to see who's going to go to WrestleMania, because usually the winner of the Rumble, on a few occasions it hasn't happened, but usually the winner of the Rumble ends up facing off against the champion at WrestleMania. Anyway, Vince McMahon forfeits his WrestleMania moment. The next Monday night on Raw, that he would like to forfeit the opportunity to go to WrestleMania that year. Sort of stupid, if you ask me. He would have been better off just letting Austin win and then just maybe screwing him at WrestleMania. I don't know. Beats the hell out of me. So this is the rubber match. Now, despite the fact that I said that there was a that they had two matches before this, Michael Cole seems to have a different story. Later on in the night, Michael Cole will say that for one reason or another, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong and maybe Michael Cole's right, because Cole seems to be the journalist, if you will, who lived through it, and for that matter, it's hard to explain. So the draw, or the no contest that I earlier mentioned just a second ago, well, That must have happened years later because they did have a last man standing match. I do remember that. Those two having a last man standing match, and I thought that it was for the championship, but maybe I'm stupid, and for whatever reason, I'm remembering a match that happened years down the road instead of one that happened somewhere between January 99 and April, or I'm sorry, February. Yeah, because that's what we're looking at, right? Because this is January 31st, 1999. Anyway, so this is the rubber match, despite the fact that their last man standing match ended in a no contest, DNA, no contest, or a draw that could very well have been it could have very well been the case to make the score a tie at one apiece. And if that's the case, then The Rock winning at the Rumble, which is the very last pay-per-view that they had, means that The Rock is TWO, by the way, even though it's spelled TOO, and Foley is 1. So they've had 3 contests, is what I was trying to say here, and that I was saying that The Rock is 2 matches up on Foley, who's only 1, and this would be technically the rubber match, because Michael Cole mentions a match that happened on Monday Night Raw, which Mick Foley wins. Okay? Try to follow me here. It happened on Monday Night Raw, right? So, and Foley won, and Foley apparently became the champion, and he did it with the help of Stone Cold Steve Austin, which Vince McMahon will tell you later on in the night. Anyway, had that been the case, the 99... The Royal Rumble 1999, which was the I Quit match, I think it should have been the last man standing match, but I was wrong. But the 99 Royal Rumble, in which that there were just countless chair shots that were delivered to Mick Foley's mush, his skull, his head. That was the second match, and that would put them up 1-1, so 1 love, and this would make it, so I don't know what the hell I'm talking about here on my notes here, this would make it the third and final bout, or maybe I was giving them both a score, both a point, because they were both up 1 thanks to the no contest, so I was counting the no contest, so no matter how you look at it, they're tied. Whether they're 2-2, thanks to the no contest, giving them both each 1 point because of Foley having 1 point thanks to the Monday Night Raw before, and the 1 point thanks to the no contest, and The Rock would have 2 points thanks to the bout at the Royal Rumble, which he caved Foley's head in with a chair countless times, might I add, and the no contest. So no matter how you look at it, if we're keeping score here, they're both 2 bouts up against each other. It sounds hard to explain, but I just explained it. And, yeah. But this would be an empty arena match. Spoilers, Mankind wins, because I've seen this one at least 4 or 5 times. My mom used to have it on a VHS, and I would watch it religiously. But I thought that since the Super Bowl was coming up and everyone and their mom wants to talk about John Elway, whoever the fuck that is, I thought it would be an appropriate time to bring up Halftime Heat, considering Us here in the East Coast, I would say, don't even know what the word heat means because we're freezing our balls off. At the time of this podcast being dropped, it's currently 5 degrees outside. I live in a house that has no internal heat system. However, I do have a heating blanket and one heater. As long as I stay in my room, I stay a little bit comfortable, a little bit, but enough of my shortcomings and living in a house with no heat system. I woke up this morning, as a matter of fact, and went to go fix something to eat. A can of raviolis, not sponsored, but Chef Boyardee hit me up. There's your cheap pop, Chef Boyardee. I woke up, got a can of Chef Boyardee raviolis, and they were frozen in the can. They will face off against each other in an empty arena match during halftime heat. The Super Bowl, the dates line up. The Super Bowl took place on January 31st, 1999. If memory serves me correct, that's a Sunday because Super Bowl Sunday, right? So I didn't look it up. I'm just assuming that it's a Sunday. Also, Sunday Night Heat comes on, which was WWE's pre-programming show that they used to have. As I'm taking my notes, there's a graphic that pops up on the screen and it says Sunday Night Heat, which even further is evidence to tell me that this is going to happen on a Sunday, and the next episode of Monday Night Raw would be February 1st, because if this was January 31st, then this would be February 1st, 1999. For canonical purposes, I need to write that down so that maybe I could go back and watch it. So the show opens up with a crowd full of people. The thing that the announcer said, Mankind will face off against The Rock in an empty arena. There's people paid a ticket. How the fuck are you just going to kick them out? But little did I know that. So, like I said, my mom had this on a VHS. That she probably recorded without even paying attention to any sort of, copyright laws from NBC or whoever else. Because NBC owns the USA Network, and I'm pretty sure that all of WWE's programming came on the USA Network. And if that's the case, well, it has to be true because I said it. I'm just going to say it, I know that's a running gag here on the podcast, me saying that, but it has to be true because I said it. NBC is owned by the USA Network due to a number of contracts that they have. And if that's the case, I was a little bit confused about how they were supposed to do an empty arena match. But they bought out another arena. That's how they're going to do it. Michael Cole says this makes the third match. Now, here's what confuses me. Michael Cole says this makes the third match, right? You remember the no contest, no disqualification, last man standing that I just mentioned? Well, apparently, the no contest last man standing that I just got done mentioning, he doesn't mention it, which pisses me off. Makes me sound like I'm a liar, but I know that they had a last man standing match. And it wasn't on Monday Night Raw, it was on some... because he makes it sound like it's just a one-on-one contest rather than just a last man standing match. This makes the third. Michael Cole says this makes the third match these two participants will take place in. Perhaps the no contest match that I brought up earlier happens years from now, because according to Michael Cole, the first bout took place on Monday Night Raw a few weeks ago, when Mankind shocked The Rock, shocked the People's Champion, The Rock by beating him for the championship. The second one happened at the Royal Rumble, and this is trifecta of wrestling, and they've had also my statement earlier. Michael Cole is an empty arena of sorts. He's in an empty arena of sorts. Every time he talks, there's an echo. So maybe they sold out somewhere, and they purchased a rental, I guess, for another arena on their big Titantron. So they've got some sort of a big LED looking. Imagine a 300-foot television. That's basically what the people in the arena in Arizona are going to be able to watch that on. Like one of those little things that the teacher used to use whenever presenting. I want to call it an elbow. I don't know why. That's one of those light projectors. Where they're going to let people see what happens between The Rock and Mankind. Then we get a recap of what happened last week on Raw. Brought to you by Skittles. Taste the rainbow. Skittles, hit me up. Not sponsored, by the way. But please don't sue me, unless, of course, you want to sue me. You want to, if you did this to me. You know, if they did sue me, I probably would bring a lot of listeners to my podcast, especially a lot of people who eat Skittles. Nonetheless, I mean not to say there was a recap of what happened last Monday night on Raw on their show, where Kane chokeslammed X-Pac, and Shane McMahon gave X-Pac the Bronco Buster, which is the same move that he had given to Shane a week prior. So perhaps he got some payback. He gave him a taste of his own medicine. Did Shane McMahon gave X-Pac a taste of his own medicine? Because a week prior, X-Pac put Shane McMahon on the Bronco Buster. China has been inducted into Shane McMahon's corporation, turning her back on the former friends, now D-Generation X, and in doing so, she claims to have enough money to buy them and then sell them again, and she would still have enough money to turn a profit. An I Quit match. What does it say that? Apparently, The Rock beat Triple H thanks to help from China. So I'm curious, why was The Rock booed? Oh, okay. Why was The Rock booked into consecutive I Quit matches? One at the Royal Rumble and another one at an unspecified time, somewhere between the last week of January or the second week of January. Which, if you know, the Royal Rumble was probably around the third week of January, because that's what they're talking about happened last week. And right now, it's the 31st of January in 1999. Did somebody have some weird obsession with gimmick matches known as the I Quit match? It seems unusual to me that one champion would be booked in two of those consecutively, because usually they're saved for high-profile matches. Triple H comes out to tell China that even though she wanted to be treated like an equal in D-Generation X, no matter how bad she wanted to be treated as an equal, she was missing one key component, and that's a set. Of course, he means a set of balls, set of nuts. Triple H then goes on to tell China that for her, it's all about money because she's nothing but a $2 slut. Now it's announced that Kane will face off against Triple H in a steel cage match at the next Monday Night Raw in 24 hours. Also, this is the first time they referred to Kane as Corporate Kane. They did not fully do this. Like, Corporate Kane wouldn't actually be a thing until actually like 2013. So keep in mind that this is 1999. Corporate Kane would, of course, be his gimmick back then, 2012, 2013. Um, they even mentioned it on commentary. I think it's Kevin Kelly on commentary that said that when the Super Bowl goes to halftime, they're going to have an empty arena match. The VHS that I mentioned earlier that it only had that match. So I've yet to see the rest of these interactions that happened earlier on in the night. I was under the impression that there was just one match, and it was the broadcast over television, not really made and invent. Oh, okay. So here's the thing, guys. I thought for sure that I was going to have an easy day, that it was just going to be The Rock versus Mankind in an empty arena match, and it was probably just going to be like a 40-minute match or something like that. No easy task here. You see, because there's two matches, and then there's the empty arena match. So, I mean, the two matches that follow that one, they're alright, I guess. One's better than the other, that's for damn sure. And it's the co-main event before the main event. Contracts that have to be signed because WWE, to my knowledge, has always been a product of NBC. Never mind, I just answered my own question. Oh, okay. So I was going to ask you guys a question. I was under the impression that there was one match and that it was a broadcast over television, not really made into an entire event to run canonically beside of or in competition for that matter with the Super Bowl. That night, wouldn't there be a lot of contracts rather, that would have been signed, because WWE, to my knowledge, has always been a product of NBC. Never mind, I just answered my own question. Because the Super Bowl does broadcast over NBC, right? Because I know for sure that the USA Network is owned by NBC. Imagine if it was a different channel. I would imagine that the halftime heat would not exist, because they're not going to promote your product on our television program. Are you stupid? Well, how much are they paying? You know, can you imagine some executive just having to answer the phone, be like, yeah, your wrestling program? Why would us executives over here at bumfuck Egypt, wherever the hell that we are, why would we entertain the idea of your wrestling program? Me throw big football. Jeff Jarrett comes to the ring accompanied by Deborah. He is one half of the tag team champions. We see some highlights from last Monday night, and it appears that the Blue Blazer, that's not the Blue Blazer, shows up and hits his opponent upside the head with a guitar. Sorry about that. And the reason that I can tell you that for sure that that's not the Blue Blazer, despite him having the Blue Blazer insignia as well as the cape and the mask, is because the Blue Blazer is not a black man. Oh, it's not black, is what I said. And before you get on your keyboard and type out that's racist, I'm simply saying because the fact that the Blue Blazer was played by a white man, not just any white man, but a white man. Usually commentary is very quick when it is very quiet. Oh, okay. Usually commentary is very quiet when the announcers, in this case Tony Chimmel, is trying to announce the following matchup that's about to take place. Commentary, for some reason, just keeps talking over the announcer what happened, or highlights package on what's happened 3 or 4 weeks ago to catch up the audience. But instead of doing that while Chimmel is talking, making the announcements, they could do it while the two superstars in question are in the ring. Yeah, so instead of waiting for the announcer, this matchup is scheduled for one fall, introducing first and introducing his opponent, like instead of doing that, they're just talking over him. And usually that's a no-no because they do a really good job over in AEW with conducting like the announcers with the commentary team. But I don't think I've ever heard a color commentator, and that's what I'm going to continue to call him because he's not a play-by-play commentator for sure in Shane McMahon and Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly might be a little bit better at it than Shane McMahon is. But Vince McMahon is the worst, and don't worry, we'll get to that here in just a minute. Yeah, they're absolutely awful. Just talking over a man who's trying to do his job. As the big boss man faces off against Jeff Jarrett, they briefly mention a show that was covered about a year ago, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre pay-per-view event. There was a main event where Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in a steel cage, despite the fact that they looked as though that it was a no-win contest for Steve Austin, and Steve Austin had the match practically won at least 3 different times, but Vince McMahon kept flipping Austin the bird every time that Austin would get atop the cage, and Austin would continue to climb down the cage and lay a severe beating on McMahon because Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't take kindly is what it should say, but my notes are that doesn't say kindly. That says Conley. I swear to God, man. Doesn't take kindly to people who taunt him, but would end up winning when the Big Show, who was then referred to as the Giant at that time, but the Big Show would throw Austin against the cage so hard that the cage would unbuckle from the hinges, allowing Austin to escape and win the match. Yes, we have covered the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. No, not the thing that happened. Whenever I talk about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, I'm talking about the WWF pay-per-view, not the actual historical event by the same name. Just thought I'd clear that up. Jeff Jarrett and the Big Boss Man are going back and forth, trading blows left and right. Shortly before this, Jeff Jarrett, it says Jeff Jerry. Well, Jeff Jarrett tries to leave the match, but gets stopped by the Big Boss Man. Big Boss Man putting Jarrett in the ring and just Irish whipping him from corner to post. Big Boss Man hits Jeff Jarrett with a sidewalk slam. Would later start to be known as the Big Boss Man Slam. 2 out of 5 stars. He would win after that. 2 out of 5 stars, not really interesting, or for that matter, that entertaining of a contest. It fits the bill for being an opening contest because it's short. It's like a warm-up to a main spot. If not everything, it's under an opening contest. Yep, that's everything that I would imagine that an opening contest would be. It seems as though that we have some clever editing here because the Big Boss Man appears to be picking up a nightstick, which the commentator for him afterwards, commentator Kevin Kelly, seems to say something, but it appears that he's cut off, and instead of showing us the action in the ring that's happening after the match, we get a look at the crowd while commentary stays silent, and afterward we look at commentary. Shane McMahon is on commentary, who is voting. Afterwards, commentary, Shane McMahon is on commentary, who is voting Boss Man into continuing what presumably is an assault. Oh, okay, he's like vouching him on and on. I see what yours. Okay. One can only assume you wouldn't pick up a nightstick to greet your best friend with. You know, you don't pick up a billy club and be like, "Hey, how you doing, buddy?" You know. They show us an opening credits to what seems to be an adult movie, and Val Venus, which rhymes with my penis, which rhymes with my penis, for those of you who don't understand the joke, back then, seems to have been an on-screen affair with Ken Shamrock's sister. Do you know what the completely screwed up part of this entire thing is? It explained to me years later, the woman who plays Ken Shamrock's sister is actually his girlfriend in real life. Val Venus, on the other hand, films the video with her in which he entitled, quote, Sister Act, and apparently shows them in the shower together. I could make a what are you doing, step bro joke, even though I make the joke as an example of a joke that I could possibly make, suggesting what direction that I could take my humor, and I myself am not sure that that's even appropriate. Ken Shamrock versus Owen Hart, which is our next match. And Owen Hart is the other half of the tag team champion. You know, Jeff Jarrett, the other half of the tag team champions, who just lost just a second ago to the Big Boss Man. So this is the second match of the night, featuring one of the tag team champions facing off against a member of the corporation. Ken Shamrock with a knee to the face to Owen Hart. Owen Hart eclipses Shamrock with a spinning wheel kick, knocking him onto the ground. Owen Hart with a sleeper hold on Ken Shamrock, with a counter knocking both men off their feet, causing a stalemate. Ken Shamrock hooks the leg, only gets a 2 count on Owen. Hart looking for a cover, but only gets a near fall. Hurricanrana by Shamrock onto Owen Hart. As I mentioned earlier, they show a highlights package of the black-blue blazer who intervened in a match last week. Oh, the same guy shows up dressed up as the blue blazer. But here's the problem. The blue blazer, if I remember correctly, the original blue blazer was in the match that the original blue blazer just interfered on. Of those two participants that was in the match was Owen Hart. It'd be like dressing up as Batman during Bruce Wayne's funeral and showing up. 3 out of 5 stars. This one was a straight wrestling contest, and it's not often that we see those types of stories being told. Out of the two, I feel as though that Owen is the better wrestler, and for that matter, the better technician. But Ken Shamrock wins this match in particularly most because Owen had the superior training. Oh, okay. In particular is what I should have said. All right. So this is the final half of the podcast. We go to a first commercial, the commercial that apparently was during the Super Bowl. I'm just going to leave a link in the description below because I don't think that I can do it justice, but I will try. The commercial opens up with Steve Austin. He's trying to explain to most people the common misconception about the WWF. He's walking through the hallways and he grabs a steel chair in his hand and he's already folded it up and he proceeds to beat somebody with it. And then he says, "We're a non-violent form of entertainment, Steve Austin." Oh my God. Steve Austin says, while he's got a steel chair in his hand and he's about to whack somebody with it. Can you guys say irony? Sable then walks past the hallway. She proclaims that they never use sex to promote their image. Meanwhile, they're like 4 feet from her. There's like people making out on and a woman moaning. And if you know anything about the WWF, you know that they always use sex to promote. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times, guys, that I've seen people be thrown into tubs of jelly or bra and panties matches, all kinds of, I mean, once again, can you say irony? Oh yeah, just let me go on record just by saying they always use sex to promote their product. I can't count the number of bra and panties matches. I sure as hell can't count the number of times someone's been thrown into a pool of or been sexualized in another way, perhaps. Like a mud bath match. I know that I've at least reviewed one mud bath match that happened maybe on a Christmas episode that I did. I'm leaving out where someone have been sexualized on live television, more particularly the women of the WWF, especially seeing as though that they just got done talking about Val Venus rhymes with my penis, and he was having shower sex rather with another guy's sister. And he literally had a a movie entitled Sister Act. Like, okay, Sister Act. Like, the fucking Whoopi Goldberg movie. Or maybe it's supposed to be a parody of, like, Sister Sister. The two twins from, God damn it, what's the name of it? Disney Channel. There's your cheap pop Disney. The Rock taking off his sunglasses while walking through the hallway of what presumably is supposed to be WWF Corporation office, says that he understands the importance of being a role model to the younger generation. And behind him, there's office chairs flying everywhere, and people knocking the stuffing out of each other. Also, he says that he understands that he needs to provide an example or be a positive role model. Just a week ago, he literally hit a man with a steel folding chair 37 plus times, a number that is argued as to how many chair shots that there were that Mankind took that night. I don't know. I've already said that. I know I've already said that, rather. To my knowledge, no one has come up with a certain concrete answer. Maybe, just maybe, if I was to do that, I'm sure that The Rock... Oh, I'm sure that might set some sort of record, some sort of Guinness Book World Record, and for that matter, that Mankind set some sort of record, taking the most chair shots in wrestling history. So the last 20 seconds of the commercial is really hard to explain, so like I said, I'll just have to leave a link in the description below. But it's basically a commercial that played during the Super Bowl. So not only did he pay to be on... Holy shit, not only did Vince McMahon pay to be on the halftime show of the Super Bowl, because I'm sure that they didn't pay him. I'm sure it's other people who pay, like... How does that work? Because you would figure where you're giving a performance that they would pay you. But why would they pay you? You're paying them for the commercials and everything else. Who's making money? Is it the performer or is it the fucking football arena? God damn, this is a hard fucking question. So coming to the championship match, it is now time for the main event, halftime heat. It's an empty arena match that everyone's been building toward and everyone's been talking about the entire duration of this program. And before we get to the program started, it appears that we might have a concrete answer as to how many chair shots were sustained according to commentary. Shane McMahon, he claims that there was 11 chair shots. I'm going to have to look at the Royal Rumble 1999 and get a concrete answer. Don't worry, it won't be anytime soon. It might be next year's Rumble, and then I'll be like, okay, fine, I'll look at it. Like, I guess I'll have to at that point. Provided that Sami Zayn doesn't win the 2025 Royal Rumble. Hey, insert foot in mouth. I mean, odds are he'll get another opportunity. He claims that there was 11 chair shots, sustained at the Royal Rumble 1999. I'm going to have to look at that to get a concrete answer because I feel as though that I would be doing a service that I may count the number of chair shots despite the fact that it has been debated for some reason. Like, all they had to do was count. How did they fuck that up so badly? If I count, provided that I count, maybe I would get a credit put to my name, but sort of like this. According to Mocha from the Gut Wrench podcast, and someone would clip that, what I was talking about, or a Wikipedia page or something, someone would quote me. Okay, Vince McMahon is on commentary for the match, the face-off against The Rock and Mankind for the WWF Championship. Right now, The Rock is the champion. And according to Vince McMahon, Mankind stole 100,000 of The Rock's money in order to goat him. Vince McMahon's words, not mine. His words, not mine. For fighting for the WWF Championship. Mankind gets a pin on Rock. He only gets a 2 count. Shortly therefore, after Mankind hits Cactus Jack's flying maneuver, finishing maneuver, double armed DDT. As we know it today, it is the Future Shock DDT or the Paradigm Shift. He also puts on the Mandible Claw, using that dastardly dirty sock. Mankind goes for another pin after hitting The Rock with a neck breaker on the outside of the ring, and he only gets a near fall. Mankind talking trash to Mr. McMahon. He says, "Don't worry, Vince, you're next." I'm surprised by how Mr. McMahon hasn't interfered just yet. To my knowledge, no one interferes on either person's behalf. And I'm taking notes as it's happened. And yes, I do realize that I've said that I've seen this at least 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times, maybe more than that. But keep in mind, I was a child, and since then, they really don't show highlights of this match all that much. They don't really bring it up. The Rock pins Mankind, who ends up kicking out at 1. Mr. McMahon on commentary about to lose his lunch. He's so excited that The Rock has now taken control of the match. Now, Mankind gets hurled into a whole bunch of empty seats. This is an empty arena match. Upon throwing the empty seats, upon being thrown into the empty seats, that man. Okay, the Mankind was thrown into. Mr. McMahon, about to blow his load, says, "Oh yes, take a seat." He could have said, "What an Irish whip" by The Rock. He could have said, "Mankind being thrown into those empty chairs." See, like I said, Mr. McMahon's commentary is so bad. And you should have heard him back in the day. Whenever I say back in the day, I just mean, I don't mean to sound like an old fuck or anything, but back when Mr. McMahon was on commentary, and his dad or whoever it was that owned the company to begin with, he used to do this incessantly horrible thing wherever, instead of saying the wrestling move that was being performed, I would say the wrestling move that was being performed, "What a suplex by," and then wrestler's name, "Oh my God, what an Irish whip." I wouldn't, how do I say this? I wouldn't insult my viewers, my listeners. odds are they know what a DDT is. Odds are they know what a neck breaker is. They've tuned into professional wrestling before and they know what all these moves are. They don't need me to be like, oh, what a great wrestling maneuver. That's what McMahon used to do back in the day. He had one catchphrase and it was, what a maneuver. What a maneuver. It's like, yeah, that's a great maneuver. The Rock takes the time to gloat on the commentator's desk before he is firmly in control of this match. It's more than likely that Mankind gave the hand sign that, hey, I'm really hurt. And the referee noticed that, and they had to go check up on Mankind to let The Rock be a little bit more charismatic. Keep in mind, Mankind at this time took around 37, if not more, chair shots to the head, unprotected, because his hands were, in fact, tied behind his back or handcuffed behind his back. But that was a week prior this match and to this match that we're talking about now. The wounds that he did suffer a week prior to the Royal Rumble event would go on to leave a big bandage on this match here tonight, almost halfway through the left side of his forehead. He has like this big open bandage of some sort, and it's sort of taped up. The Rock low blows Mankind while Mankind has a mandible claw locked in The Rock's face, on his mouth rather. Mr. McMahon, for some reason, says that he was supposed to have a broadcast partner here tonight. He mentions Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he calls Steve Austin a chicken for saying that Austin chickened out of doing commentary beside of Mr. McMahon. Keep in mind, this was 2 weeks before their big cage match at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Not the actual massacre, but of course the pay-per-view event by the same name. Which was something that we had previously discussed. And also, we looked at that pay-per-view, believe it or not. Last year's Valentine's Day, if I remember correctly. Or not Valentine's Day, but somewhere near February. Mr. McMahon then goes on to say that even though Mankind has won the WWF Championship, it was in large part due to some assistance from Stone Cold Steve Austin. And as I stated before, I'm almost certain that no one interferes here tonight, which honestly is surprising, knowing the format that they had back then, which was practically every second and every third match would get interference in one form, fashion, or in another to tell a story, but sometimes the stories would end up doing absolutely nowhere. There was no way of starting a rivalry back then. Oh, okay. So I'm talking about the fact that I guess that was their way of just starting a rivalry back then. Ooh, you interfered on my match. Next week, we must duel to the death, Something like that. Oh, you cost me a championship match because you got me disqualified, and said person would stop chasing said championship after someone would interfere on said championship match, costing that person said championship, completely losing sight of said championship, and then starting said rivalry with said person who interfered on said championship match. Does that make sense? Should make sense because I'm the one that said it. Anyways, back to the match. The Rock waits behind a pillar and assaults Mankind with a trash can and then proceeds to kick him down a flight of stairs. And these don't even look like concrete steps, they look like steel steps. Not even concrete steps. I wonder which one would hurt worse, but uh, I don't know why. I wonder which one would hurt worse sexually, but this makes me second time that Mankind in his career. Oh, okay. So this makes the second time in his career that Mankind would get kicked down a flight of stairs. Actually, this makes the first time, but the second time, canonically, because think about it, he would years later be kicked down some steps by Randy Orton, who claimed that he was the legend killer and he was there to kill the legend of Mick Foley, the hardcore legend, who, by the way, at that point in time had already won, had already been victorious, is what I should say, in at least 2 Japanese death matches and 1 Japanese death match tournament. They gave him a trophy, by the way. The whole entire time, it's neglected to mention, since the start of the match, these two have been doing nothing but talking trash. Yeah, I've neglected to mention, is what I should say, have been doing nothing but talking trash to further exacerbate the story that these two are telling. Understand that they're talking trash to each other in sportsmanlike conduct. However, calling each other big pieces of garbage, monkey shit. Like, hey, you're a worthless piece of monkey crap. You stupid, stinking pile of dog shit. The Rock adding salt to the proverbial wound by dumping what seems to be miscellaneous trash items from an aluminum trash can onto Mick Foley, and then proceeds to assault him with said trash can. The Rock breaks a broom handle over Mankind's back and throws him into a display of cotton candy. And Mr. McMahon on commentary, once again with some fucking genius commentator's line, says, "Give me one." On commentary, once again, gives one of the worst lines by saying, "I didn't know Mankind had a sweet tooth." What? He just got thrown into a pallet of fucking... It's not even a pallet, but a display. More like a hanging display of cotton candy. I didn't know Mankind had a sweet tooth. What, bro, are you trying to appeal to? Who are you trying to appeal to? With that last, I guess, you could call that a dad joke, but I mean, that would be an insult to all dads. Told Mankind gets thrown into the empty seats. Oh, you say, well, why don't you have a seat? Like, wait until he gets thrown into those empty chairs and then just be like, oh, why don't you have a seat? Who taught you how to do commentary, is what I wrote down here. And now they're in a kitchen, and we are hearing a lot of sizzling noises. The Rock pulls down what presumably is an oven, and The Rock throws Mankind in the oven, and he winces, and you can hear the sizzling of skin for a brief moment. I know the jury... Oh, okay. I know what Jerry Lawler would be saying if he were on commentary here tonight, because we are in a kitchen, and just because I said something about dad jokes that like Mr. McMahon's not even making funny dad jokes, Like, here's a funny one. I know that if Jerry Lawler was on the commentator's desk, I know what he would be saying right now. And this is a quote directly from Jerry Lawler, for those of you who don't know. Nothing says lovin' like something from the oven. It's because, they're fighting in a kitchen right now. Because he's used the line in one or two of the shows that I've watched, and I always laugh when I hear it. The Rock goes for a pin, only gets a 1, a near fall on Mankind. Vince McMahon on commentary with yet another cringe line. He says, Mankind can't stand the heat, so he needs to get out of the kitchen. What the fuck, bro? Bro, you're so bad. Please stop. I bet John Madden could have done a better job on commentary than what you're doing right now. And John Madden was obsessed, according to what I'm told. I don't know whether or not this is true, but John Madden was obsessed with Brett Favre. Brett Favre. The Rock found a container of Jack Daniels. He took a sip of it, and Mankind started laying into him, putting his hands all over the Rock. And according to Vince McMahon on commentary, that wasn't real liquor, by the way, because the real liquor hasn't touched the Rock's lips. He owns his own tequila company today. I can't tell you the name of it because it's like the name of his tribe in Hawaii, tequila. But yeah, so Vince McMahon, everything that he says just gets debunked automatically. Either that or it's not even funny. Or it's funny, but it's not like bro. It's like bro funny. It's not like, oh my god, that's so funny. That's such a knee slapper. The Rock picks up one of the popcorn kernels and he puts it in his mouth. And after he finds out that it's too much salt, and those are his exact words too, he goes, there's too much salt. And then afterwards he kicks Mankind right in the mush, right in the face. He kicks Mankind in the head, who's trying to get up from being slammed by a door. Oh, okay. I skipped over that part. So he kicks Mankind in the head, he's trying to get up because the Rock slammed him in the head with the door. Open slamming in Mankind's face. Earlier I mentioned popcorn, and there was a spot that I didn't write down because I didn't think that I had to, but Mankind brings a bag of popcorn over to the Rock and starts beating him over the head with it, like a quaint weapon. If you ask me, upon doing so, however, it bust popcorn going all over the Rock surrounding area. So not only does Mankind take like this big bag of popcorn and beat the Rock over the head with it, but popcorn goes everywhere, and the Rock picks up the popcorn, he puts it in his mouth, and then after, it's too much salt, and then he just kicks Mankind because there's too much salt in the popcorn that Mankind had no part in even, I don't know, making. The Rock picks up yet another trash can and assaults Mick Foley with it. Once again, why do I keep referring to him as Mick Foley? Oh my god. Like he is Mick Foley, but he's not Mick Foley here. He's Mankind. It's like referring to Elijah Woods as the guy from the fucking Lord of the Rings movies, It's like, but he's not. He's Elijah Woods. Oh my god. Anyway, This time they were what seems to be somewhere in a dining room, according to Vince McMahon. The people who were slightly off camera, uh, the people who are slightly off camera once in a while, it pans to see them, and they are the ring crew. They are the people who are responsible for putting up the wrestling ring in every arena, uh, shipping it everywhere else in whatever arena. It looks like the ring crew is having some sort of get together, some sort of dinner, perhaps, just waiting for the empty arena match, I suppose, to subside so that they could get back, so that they could put the ring back down and go home. Uh, Whatever dinner that they had just got thrown out the window. No catering here tonight, as The Rock had some choice words for Mankind, calling him a fat fuck, saying, how about some bread, you fat fuck?" And he starts throwing like stale bread at him. And Mankind also throwing some food items. I can't really tell what they are. The Rock seems to throw some bread from the table. Uh, oh, okay. The Rock grabs some bread because Mankind got some hot sauce thrown on him. I think in his eye. But anyway, The Rock then grabs some bread from the table, tears it up a piece, and then proceeds to wipe the sauce that he threw on Mankind from the bread, from Mankind's skin, is writhing and wincing in pain, saying how much it burns, is Mankind. He's like, "Oh, it burns," because he threw hot sauce on him or something. The Rock then spits out the sauce, and I'm assuming the bread, until Mankind, and tells Mankind that's mild, and then kicks him in the head. So you remember earlier, whenever it's too much salt, and now it's mild. It's not even hot sauce, you dumb motherfucker. It's mild. And these are two things that are out of Mankind's, like imagine like, this is like Chef Ramsay. Now, do you see why he says, do you smell what The Rock is cooking? Because what if it was too salty? He'd kick your ass. According to Vince McMahon, The Rock is not so barbaric that he would demean himself into this type of match. Mankind forced The Rock into defending the championship in this type of environment by apparently, quote, stealing $100,000 of his own money. I'm just curious to know, how do you walk away if there's $100,000 in a purse? How many pockets do you need? You don't even have that many pockets. How many $100 bills is that? Upon doing math, it's apparently 10,000 $100 bills. Yes, 10,000 $100 bills. You can't fit that in your pocket. Do you know how long it would take you? I'm just going to throw that out there. Do you know how fucking long it would take you to count to 10,000? Let's say it's in a purse, and you know the old lady, the old bitch, pardon my language, who has $10,000 in her purse. You're not going to be able to steal it because you're not going to be able to know whether or not it's the full 10,000 unless you count it. Provided that she doesn't already have it in money rolls or whatever. And let's say that she doesn't. Let's say that it's just miscellaneous change throughout her purse. How the fuck are you, like, you could take a few 100,000, maybe, Not even a few 100,000. Because all she has is 100,000. So you could take a few thousand, is what I mean to say. Holy shit. You could maybe take like 50,000. Maybe, if you're lucky, before she gets back. What Mr. McMahon is going on about, let's assume that Mankind isn't some government hacker who hacked into The Rock's bank account, and on top of bank account, that back then, that really wasn't a concern for people, their bank account getting hacked into. In 1999, we were worried about something called Y2K. No, not the sex jelly. Earlier on in the night, The Rock low-blowed Mick Foley. McMahon didn't say anything about it, but now Mick Foley low-blows The Rock, dropping The Rock to his knees. And Vince McMahon on commentary talks about how lousy a competitor that Mick Foley is, and how he would stoop so low. They go into an office of some sort, and the people inside clear out. The phone starts ringing, and The Rock answers, says, "SmackDown Hotel, Mankind can't talk right now. He's busy eating The Rock's foot in his mouth." There's a woman who's in the corner who rejects The Rock's advances. The Rock's like, "Hey, baby, how would you like to get with The Rock tonight?" Something like that. And then she's like, "No." And then he's like, "Okay, then get lost, bitch." And he tells her to get to stepping, as Mankind, meanwhile, gets to his footing, and afterwards, after being strangled with the telephone cord, which is just minutes earlier, The Rock once again answers the phone and says, "Mankind can't come to the phone right now." He answers the phone the same way. He says, "SmackDown Hotel." And then after that, he goes, "Mankind can't come to the phone right now. He's a little tied up." And then afterwards, he starts like choking Mick Foley with the phone cord. See, that's how you make a dad joke, Vince McMahon. All right? God damn. It appears that Mankind has a sweet tooth. What are you talking about, dumbass? He just knocked him into it. Not even a pallet. Just a display. A display of nothing but cotton candy. I'm losing my voice. After being strangled with the telephone cord, and he hits The Rock with an office chair. Does Mankind. The match ends with the two superstars, The Rock and Mankind. They're on a loading dock area shortly after being in that office that I mentioned earlier. The Rock shortly passes out after being put in the... after having that nasty sock shoved down his mouth and being put in the mandible claw maneuver of Mankind. Mankind then commandeers a forklift and sets the forklift, the pallet that's on the forklift, he sets it on top of The Rock. He sets the prongs, you know, those things that are used to move things with forklifts. Well, he sets that on top of The Rock. And then afterwards, Mankind gets on top of the pallet, and the referee counts 3 because technically The Rock's shoulders are on the ground. So therefore, that dignifies, that counts as a pin. 1, 2, 3, and your new champion, Mankind. Sets a forklift on The Rock. He sets on top of the forklift prongs and weighs down The Rock. Cannot physically kick out of the Mankind's pin. Mankind wins the WWF Championship for the second time in his career. And I give it 4 out of 5 stars. A lot has happened here, and whenever I say a lot, I mean a smorgasbord of things that might not typically, that are not typically a wrestling match, let alone a death match, which is what I could compare this to. Those Japanese death matches and professional wrestling. And yes, this happened on live television on NBC during halftime at the goddamn Super Bowl. Now, the third match that took place, the one that I'm telling you about right now, the championship match between The Rock and Mankind, did take place during the halftime at the Super Bowl. However, the other two matches that I looked at earlier on in the night did not happen halftime at the Super Bowl. They just happened to happen like maybe Sunday Night Heat came on, you know? Which was the name of a WWF show that they had at the time. And Sunday Night Heat came on, and they just ran through their two wrestling matches along with a few commercial breaks, and then they said, as soon as the Super Bowl goes to halftime, we'll join you. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Mocha from the Gut Wrench Podcast. This has been a very exhausting episode for me to do, but holy crap, did I do it. Did I do it? It is currently 3 o'clock in the morning. And, I think, good night, everybody. That's a wrap. Good night. Bang. And next week, we will look at AEW. Now that I have the resources to do so.